We are live with Michelle Spencer and Derek Spencer and Andrea McDonald. And Andrew, why you laugh? It's a very official introduction. This is how we do things here. Andrea and I have been working together. I feel like, I think you guys know the story. We tried to chase Andrea out of here. Do you guys know that?
No, I don't think so.
Oh yeah, Andrea was going to start working with Rockstar. She came to meet with us when we were in this Burlington office, and she had just got her real estate license. She's like, "Hey, I want to start working with you guys." She already knew Mike on the team, and we're like, "No, we don't think you want to do this. Why don't you just go away for a week? We'll tell you all the horrible things that you have to do, filling vacant properties for investors and doing all this stuff, late nights, on weekends. And then if you really want to do this again, just kind of come back in a week and let us know." And I think I told Nick, I'm like, "Yeah, I met with Andrea. I told her, I don't think this is right for her." And then a week later, she showed up. And we're like, okay, if you're crazy enough to show up, then yeah, you're perfect material.
Yeah, look how long she's been here.
And and not only that, just she's been, Andrea, the people she's worked with, as you well know, she's had their backs and done the most crazy things with investors, filling different properties at all times and places and different situations. For some reason, something comes to mind where one townhome, I think that you were filling it in Burlington. It was for Ron. I don't want to say his last name, but the tenants cut a hole in the floor to lower down a piano into the lower level. Do you remember that?
I kind of remember
because they couldn't get the piano into the basement, so they literally cut the floor open to lower a piano into. Anyway, so Andrea's completely incredible, and we are lucky that she did not stay away and came back.
Yep.
But,
you are lucky.
Yeah,
yep.
Totally. So Michelle, pull this down and angle that down towards you a little bit, and then pull it as close as you can to you. We want to hear you. There we go. So let's kind of get into it. Michelle, we'll start with you, and then we'll pick on Derek. How did you come across real estate? What is your journey into this real estate world look like? How did you begin?
Well, in 2011, I was just driving back and forth to work and tired of listening to the radio. So I started listening to audiobooks, and I came across the Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was inspired, and I made Derek listen to it. And fortunately, he was also inspired.
No one can see that, so I just want to make sure that Derek just rolled his eyes. Yes, he was forced to listen to Robert Kiyosaki.
Yes. And I guess Robert Kiyosaki convinced him that, real estate was a good idea, and it kind of snowballed from there. So we joined Rockstar in 2012. We bought our first property then with Andrea as our coach, and it was a rent to own. The people actually just finally bought out last year.
Oh wow! So you kept that rent to own going?
Yes.
Increasing the purchase price every once in a while as you went along.
Yeah, but not enough.
Yeah, sure. Well, who could have predicted? We used to think 7% appreciation in a year. We had a few investors that we've worked with, and we thought, oh, if you're appreciating at 7% a year, that's a tad aggressive.
Yeah.
You're a little, let's settle down here. There's enough profit at 5.5.
Yep.
Let's not go crazy at 7. And now, the last couple of years, if it hasn't been 20%, you've been under.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, we unfortunately renewed the contract 3 years prior to them buying out. So 3 years before 2021, we set the purchase price for 2021. So we lost out big.
Yeah,
but we helped people.
Yeah.
And,
and you were still profitable overall.
Exactly. Yeah. And it got us into real estate.
So let me rewind there a little bit. What made you trust Andrea? You just seemed like you were so casual about this. I listened to this Kiyosaki thing, found Rockstar, met Andrea, just bought a property, did this whole rent to own thing. So you covered an incredible amount of fears there in 3 sentences.
Yeah.
What was it was it meeting someone like Andrea to kind of help you through the process? Or were you just determined that you guys were going to do this? And was it always joint between you two?
No, it wasn't always joint. I had doubts for many years.
That it would allow us to have, that it would allow him to retire. He had doubts because he's like, I don't see how this 1 or 2 properties is going to replace our incomes. But
I would say most people think that way.
Yeah.
Is 1 or 2 properties enough to be financially meaningful to you guys or to people in general now looking back over a decade? Or
I don't think 1 or 2 is, no.
It's meaningful, but probably not allow us to retire.
Got it.
Yeah.
So then, Derek, has your attitude changed? And why?
Because you have retired.
I have. I did. I did leave the TTC.
Awesome.
Which was the greatest decision I've ever made. Even if I had to go back and work somewhere part-time, doesn't matter. I'm not there, right? It was affecting my health, everything. Horrible organization, horrible.
Oh,
Plus
really?
Plus the job itself, right?
Got it.
Dealing with people, getting yelled at, getting sworn at, getting threatened.
What were you doing at the TTC?
I was a streetcar operator for 13 years, and then I switched to bus for the last 4 years.
Downtown Toronto, like Toronto.
Well, I was on Queen Street for many years.
Oh, wow.
Night car,
Oh, wow.
Vomit Comet, whatever you want to call it.
Vomit Comet. Wow.
Whatever you want to call it. So, yeah.
And it wasn't good for your health just because of the stress of that job, dealing with the general population?
Everything. Like, you're off schedule. There's no normal shift. Like, the most...
Can you pull the mic just if you can? Yeah, there we go.
There's no normal shift. Like, if you work days, you start between 4 and, like, 6 a.m., and you're finishing... Depends. It could be a 12-and-a-half-hour day. It could be an 8-hour day. It depends on what shift you're doing. Split shifts, stuff like that, right? You eat off peak. You're just never in a rhythm.
I think the biggest thing is you're not appreciated. Like, you're not appreciated from your boss. You're not appreciated from the public. You know, where I work, like, I have an amazing boss. I've been there since 97, actually.
What do you do, Michelle?
I work for an import-export company, and I was in my last year of university, and I started working part-time for my boss. I was taking psychology at U of T, and I decided it wasn't something that I wanted to continue. So I ended up just kind of falling into this job, and I've been there ever since. And my boss, like, he's very understanding. He keeps me on my toes. He's very entrepreneurial. Like, he keeps things interesting, and he also gives me the flexibility to, you know, pursue other activities like real estate and, you know, options trading and, like, just...
Yeah, okay.
Whereas Derek didn't have that. He had, like, a structured schedule. You have to book your vacation a year in advance. There's no deviation.
Yeah, and you can't even be a minute late. Like, 1 minute late, you're a mess. You're better off, if you get stuck on the highway, you're better off calling in sick than to show up late.
Because if you're late,
that means, because generally, like, most of my time there, I worked either afternoons or evenings into night. So I'm taking over a vehicle that's already in service.
Got it. So if you're a minute late, there's no point.
And there's travel, right? Like, sometimes if you have to get to, like, St. Clair West subway station to take over that streetcar, well, I'm starting at Queen and Roncesvalles. I have to get on the system and get up there. Like, this all takes time. So every minute that goes by, that person who's waiting to go home because he's already worked 12.5 hours, and all those people sitting on that vehicle are waiting for me to be there, right?
I never really thought of that.
Yeah.
It's a complicated system.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing that you're discussing, because I feel like in that role, you're almost a little bit invisible to the people you're serving. You know, people come on, punch their ticket. I don't even know how to pay for TTC. I don't know. What do you do?
You
Flash
pay
a card?
cash, or now that's Presto and all that stuff.
Cash. Come on. I mean, you know, that's
Some
been
people
outlawed.
still do.
No, I'm joking. I still carry around cash. I'm like, well, I'm going down with the cash in my pocket. But yeah, I could see how people kind of would be dismissive, just like, get on, take me to where I'm going to the next stop. Don't say, no one's really saying hi. Or maybe you have the odd regular who says hi to you.
There are some people that you kind of got to know, but for the most part, you're just an obstacle in their day, right?
Got it.
And that's it, right?
Yeah. So good for you that you were able to kind of walk away from that.
Yeah.
Like, congratulations. That's huge. I mean, I lived with stress in a couple of my past jobs, and you can only handle that for so long. Like, it does show up in your health. Yeah. And I don't know if it did for you or not, but for me, I was getting sick every month in my past sales job, literally every month, like clockwork. As the month was coming to an end and we were calling, you know, the numbers kind of due, the stress just kind of like ate me up. It's just a bad way to live.
Well, I was miserable at home too, which Michelle knows. Like,
because you don't seem miserable now. You're showing us pictures of owls on your phone. That
I'm out in the woods.
I'm
out in the woods, enjoying life. Yeah, for sure.
And so, how long were you at the TTC?
17 years.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And so the real estate portfolio was able to assist with some of these decisions. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we started with that one, and we just sold the rent to own last year. So now we still have 8 properties.
What was it like going to Derek when he was skeptical over this? Like, what were those conversations like? Because you obviously proceeded. So, Michelle, did you just bulldoze that you were going to do this? Or was Derek like just kind of sheepishly saying, okay, like, I disagree, but fine, have it your way?
He didn't disagree. I think he just isn't the type of person to go seek out the education and seek out doing these new things, whereas I am. Like, I just always want to see constant improvement. I'm always learning. So back to the question of, you know, working with Andrea and deciding to buy a property. So I probably studied real estate for about a year. Then I stumbled on Rockstar, and, listen. I was first skeptical, I'm sure, like a lot of people, like, are these guys for real? And then listening to your stuff, reading your newsletters, I'm like, yeah, these guys are for real. And then we got paired up with Andrea, and she has a kind of personality that, she's just a very, like a person that you trust and like, naturally. And I think Derek felt the same way. So I think the first step was, okay, let's go look for properties. Like, we don't know what we're doing yet, but I mean, I've used the Rockstar materials of like, how to fill your property. I've gone to the Fast Start class. Like, let's just take the next step. So we did. And, then we found a property, and we asked Andrea, like, do you see why we shouldn't buy this? And she's like, nope, this is a great property. And so then we just one step at a time.
So then after the first property, you went for another one as like a straight rental. I forget the path.
A duplex. Yeah,
and
duplex.
That you filled that one yourself. Did that come with tenants?
No, we filled it ourselves.
Okay, and the way you analyzed the properties was just purchase price and then looking at the carrying costs. Like, how did you? What was your decision criteria?
Yeah, spreadsheets.
Okay, and then what about cities to invest in? How did you decide that?
Well, Hamilton was where we had our first. The rent-to-own was in Hamilton. The duplex was in Hamilton, and then the next one was in St. Catharines. So basically, I mean, we were just following where the cash flow, appeared to be. Which kept getting further and further out. But we did buy it.
Get cash flow.
Yeah.
It was easier. It was easier then, I think. Yeah. But I mean, back then we were probably saying, oh, it was easier 5 years ago. It's always.
I mean, I have a friend in 1998 told me, Tom, do not buy properties now. The real estate market's going down.
Yeah.
And I've literally had a friend every year since then. So when we hear people today, and we meet people today saying, oh, it's kind of over now, I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know. Don't discount it completely.
What are we going to say, right?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And rents usually lag. Like what we've seen over the years is that property prices will spike up, and then rents will take quite a little while to catch up to them. And it's kind of what we've been seeing now is that rents have spiked up incredibly over the last few years.
Yeah.
But then property prices have gone on another spike. So you're always there's always this like incongruent kind of like move, right? It just property prices bolt up.
Yeah, I think we're fortunate though with the areas that we do invest in, because this was always the example if someone was buying like a condo in downtown Toronto 5-10 years ago. The purchase price of what you'd have to pay for like a 600 square foot home versus what you could realistically ask for rent, like the numbers just didn't work. But even though prices are increasing in Hamilton, Stony Creek, and this whole area, the rents have like very healthily followed as well, right? So even though the prices are getting up there, it's not like we have this big delta between purchase price, carrying costs, and what you can rent for.
Can you share, just on that note, can you share some of the latest that you're seeing on duplex rents, on some of the stuff that's just happening right now?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say the most so in the past couple of weeks, I just sent some listings to a client yesterday of properties that just sold for duplexes. Some of them were legal, but not all of them, selling anywhere from 1.2 million to 1.4 million.
Oh my God.
In Hamilton?
In Hamilton.
Wow.
Like one was on Brucedale, like crazy.
That's crazy
numbers.
These are properties we looked at 225,
Crazy,
250,
right?
275. Yeah. Anyway.
But then when you're looking at what you can rent for the full property, you're looking anywhere from, 26 to maybe 2,800 for main floor, 18 to 2,000 for lower. And that's numbers that I can confidently say is, pretty prominent in all the properties. Given something that maybe is a bit bigger or, done up a little bit more, some people are even pushing even further on those. So you're, before, I always look back, the very first property I purchased in Hamilton was a 4-level detached back split. We were renting that whole property for $1,500.
Crazy, right?
Where right now I'm renting one of my properties for $3,200, which I feel I could easily re-rent today for like $35, $36. It's like crazy.
Now you just get the tenants out. We have some like that.
Yeah.
Hey, move along.
Yeah. They hang in there.
But when you have good tenants, it's just nice to keep good tenants. Like that relationship's important, right?
It is.
Okay, so then you went to duplexes and straight rent. And then did you guys hit any challenges along that? Like, I feel like Michelle just blasts through stuff. Andrea, did you guys hit challenges that you had to kind of navigate through?
For sure. But I feel that Michelle's very well calculated and finds out all the information, is very good at taking risks, but they're very calculated risks, right? She asks all the questions that need to be asked, does above and beyond with the behind the scenes type of stuff, which I think also helped with making you feel comfortable because it's not just like, hey, let's do this and we'll figure it out as we go. And I find they're the type of investors where if something does go wrong, I find out about it like months later. Right? Or sometimes she like in conversation, like, oh yeah, this happened, or I had to do this with this tenant, or I had this roadblock happen. But it's not like this panic phone call, like, right?
Which we also get.
We get that too.
Yeah, at the beginning, you probably would have gotten more, but, as we go on, it's like just, as Nick says, shit happens, and whoever deals with the most shit wins, right?
And so what was next? Then it was just acquiring more. So after you got the duplex, then it was just another duplex, and it was just trying to grow the portfolio from there?
Yeah, we tried a student rental. So that was going well until COVID. It was a Mohawk student rental in Hamilton. So actually, we just have the 7th room filled.
Got it.
As of probably March 1st. So that's nice. And I had a real problem student there. But I hired that led me to hire a property management company for that property. So that I think was a blessing in disguise because managing 7 different tenants, because it's not like university students where you sign one lease and, it's like a group. It's one at a time, leaving at all times of the year.
Yeah, Mohawk's definitely more, and that's what we've kind of seen about colleges, just more transitional kind of student bodies.
People are doing like a 3-month course.
3-month program here and there, whereas the universities, you have a better chance at getting a group.
Yeah.
You can kind of get them for a year.
Yeah.
Mohawk, we found the same thing. But during COVID, what happened? You had vacancies during that period?
Yeah. The problem student kind of scared away some of the
I was
other
going to say, because we didn't
students.
see too much of that, but you had that on. So it was COVID and a problem student.
Yes.
The problem student is this just...
He had borderline personality disorder.
Oh, got it.
And we
Okay.
didn't know until the other students started complaining that he was attacking them verbally and being loud.
So
and
they ended up leaving because of it?
a couple of them did.
Okay.
One of them took me to the landlord and tenant board because he said I didn't act fast enough. He notified me 2 weeks before he left that he was leaving because he couldn't take it anymore. And that was the first I'd ever heard from him
Got
specifically
it.
on the topic.
What would he want from you, the landlord, in that
Oh,
situation?
he wanted everything.
Really?
Yeah, $3,000. He wanted his moving costs paid. He basically gave me 2 weeks notice and said I want my last month's rent back.
Got it.
And
Yeah, that seems like an unreasonable expectation.
It was very unreasonable. He lost, but I mean, I hired Kelly, and it would have been cheaper to just pay him his last month rent.
And that's what we found a lot of the times is
Yeah.
that when someone, even though it's wrong, you just grit your teeth and let them get the win.
For Michelle got a phone call from so this is a 25-year-old adult man living, living in this house.
The one who took me to the landlord tenant, not the problem student.
His sister calls Michelle at work and starts reaming on her, saying how awful she is and how can she take advantage of this poor kid. He's a 25-year-old adult. It's a good thing I wasn't talking to them because I would have been like, I don't have the patience like she does. I'd have been like, listen, you're like a 25-year-old adult little bitch. Like, come on.
And I was kind of curious how the landlord and tenant board would handle something like this too. I was more just like, let's see what happens.
And what did the adjudicator say? Like, how did that process go? Because they ended up losing, but was it like...
the adjudicator, basically, they just listened to all the information, and then like a month later or so, we got a verdict that the student lost, and that's it. Like, I have to pay for my legal fees, and the student who represented himself basically had no consequences.
Yeah, got it.
So, yeah.
And so you couldn't go after any missing rent or anything from that student?
It wasn't worth it.
It wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Small amount by the time you go through courts.
But like he wanted stuff like he broke a car window while he was moving out.
His TV broke. He wanted me to pay for that.
Yeah.
This guy supposedly poisoned his fish. He wanted his fish replaced. Like,
Got it.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Really? Wow, really?
Just throw it at the wall.
Really,
and see what
eh?
sticks. So, yeah.
It's amazing to me in life that I don't think a lot of people realize is that, like, how you do anything is kind of like how you do everything. And if someone behaves like that in life, that's all you need to know about them to extrapolate their whole life out. And if they don't make some changes, you see where that kind of person's future, what kind of life they're going to have.
Yeah.
And it's going to be rather awful and challenging for them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I'm not justifying the pain they put you guys through. I just mean, you can kind of see like who lives a happy life and who doesn't.
Yeah, people bring that on themselves, I think. Like the one tenant I had in Hamilton years ago, I would call him Eeyore because every time I would talk to him, like, hey, James, how's it going? I'm okay. And like he always had this like, right? But like he would lose his job or like all these bad things were always happening to him. And I'm like, just bring some better energy around you, right? Like have a more positive attitude as you enter into the world, and I think better things will happen. Yeah, but it's just that
it's hard to for people to make the shift, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got through the student rental, you tried out the student rental. Where's your sweet spot these days? What do you like? Is it duplexes, single family kind of rentals, condos? Like what's your ideal investment in 2022?
A vacation property in Costa Rica.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, which which ended up was kind of like you guys were going to go down there, but then it didn't happen.
Yeah,
you bought
got-
something here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why did you buy? Tell us about that.
Well, we had a trip booked to go to Costa Rica in April 2020, and COVID canceled that. So we've always wanted to retire up north, like to a cottage. Derek loves to fish, and obviously we love nature. So we thought, well, waterfront property probably isn't going to get cheaper. So do you want to just go shopping for a cottage now? So we did, and the highways were completely empty because people were actually staying home. We found a cottage that we absolutely loved in Halliburton on our second outing. So we put in an offer. There were no other bids. It was right before all the cottage craziness. So that, I think, was our savior during COVID. We couldn't leave the country to travel. We were locked down, but we could go to the cottage and get away. So it was amazing, and I'm so glad we bought it.
Yeah, because since you've bought that property, it's gone up $20 to $30 million dollars. So
I think like 3 weeks after we closed the deal, everything went
Crazy.
absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
Like I think
yeah.
we closed roughly around May 24. So like everything was still like we were on the DVP heading up to like the end of the DVP with like 6 cars on the highway, like nobody.
yeah,
It
good
was
for you guys.
Beautiful.
Yeah, everything just kind of ramped. It just went quiet, and then everything just. It happened to us with that Blue Mountain property. We bought it. It was kind of quiet. We were looking around. Why is no one really doing anything? This kind of looks really interesting to us. And then 30 days later, it just kind of went like that.
Yep.
You know, Andrea, I'm sure your cottage where you guys bought in Peterborough now. I'm sure you look at the comps on that property, and you guys are happy on that thing too.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's
we had it
absolute-
appraised by the bank like in the summer, and you know banks are always very, very
Conservative.
very conservative. Their appraisal, we were like, whoa, we would take that. So yeah, it's kind of mind blowing right now.
Yeah, good
we're,
for you.
We're buying like the cottage beside us right now, and we're paying more for this cottage, which is like it's a 3-season. It's a piece of crap than what we paid for ours. But we're like, it's just you're now paying for the waterfront land, right?
Yeah.
It's
got it.
crazy.
Sure.
So then now you guys have this. What kind of? How do you manage some of these properties? Are you using spreadsheets to track income? Do you use QuickBooks? Like, how are you doing some of the management of some of just, the income expenses on these properties? How do you do the
I use Account Edge.
Account Edge, so a software program?
Yeah, I did that for work actually. So
Okay.
yeah, I was doing bookkeeping at work, and because it was just a really small company, I kind of do everything. I mean, we've grown since '97, but I've kind of seen all aspects of running a small business. So I've taken some of the skills that I've learned there,
And so everything's in an accounting software, all the money coming in and coming out. And then the professionals that you're using, who has been valuable to you? I guess it's been, lawyers, paralegal.
Yep. I mean, we recently just switched to Andrew Topping, your accountant. He's amazing.
We tell everyone he's amazing.
Yeah,
I don't think
he
anyone
is.
believes us,
Yeah,
but he is amazing.
Yeah, he's really good. As far as professionals, I mean, yeah, lawyers for sure. We've used a few different ones. We've done some private lending as well. So we've hooked up with like a mortgage broker who's also a Rockstar member, and he's introduced us to his lawyers too. So it kind of just branches out from there, and your circle gets bigger, and you don't have to rely on one.
So what kind of private lending are you doing, and what rates are those going for?
Second mortgages at like 12%.
And then what do you look for? What gives you comfort? What's an approved second mortgage for you to lend out against, and what's not?
So 80% loan to value. So we don't want to lend out so much that that our loan is at risk, our money's at risk. So yeah, at least 12%, because we're using our home equity line of credit to lend on. So we want to make like a difference. Like if the home equity line of credit's like 3%, we make 12. Okay, then it's like 9% net. So.
And so the first and second mortgage together
80%.
can't be greater than 80% on the value of the property.
Yeah.
So you're comfortable that if there's a real estate correction, I'm just going to, my mind always goes to worst case scenarios. So if the real estate drops 20%, you guys are still covered.
Yeah.
If it drops more than 20%, you're underwater there and you're in second position. So that's the risk to you. But in exchange for this risk, you're getting 12%.
Yeah.
Taking it from your credit line at, what did you say, 3.5%?
Yeah, something like that.
3.5% and making the difference.
Yeah, and we try to lend to different people. We're not like lending one person $300,000. We'll lend 1 to, 100,000 a
Is
year.
are there cities that you like or property types that you like, or no, everything's just open?
Yeah, everything's open. Like I said, I have a mortgage broker that I deal with who kind of hooks me up with the deals, and he vets the deals, for me. So I'm not going out and finding the people myself at this point.
Okay. And then Michelle, why are you like, you're buying, you do rent to own, student rental, you've done duplexes, and you guys have covered a lot. And I feel like I got to ask, like, where's this coming from? Like, where does this come from? Andrea and I have both worked with a lot of people now, and not everyone has this kind of like push to do this. Why, what is burning inside of you that's making this happen? Because you're not doing a little bit, you're doing a lot.
Yeah.
And in an unassuming way, I would say, because if you meet Michelle, I don't think you're like a braggart. Like, you're not like, hey, look at me.
No.
Hey, look at the private lending. You're like the opposite. Like, you're like the silent assassin. You know what I mean? It's like someone could come and talk to you and have you done student rentals? Check. Have you done rent to own? Check. Have you done private lending? Check. Have you done duplexes? Been to the landlord tenant board? Check. I'm sure you've dealt with mortgage problems and bank problems as well.
They've also done like large renovations to the to make them
have you guys?
duplexes too. They've been
legal,
through
yeah.
a lot with that too.
So
Yeah.
St. Catharines, we now have it's a legal duplex with,
No, it's a triplex.
is it legal triplex?
Yeah,
I thought there was some, anyways, whatever, it's a legal triplex.
I like Derek's role here.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know. Duplex, triplex, all the same to
whatever.
me. Is
Yeah.
it in the spreadsheet? Is it in the accounting software?
Yeah.
Does the rent come
Yeah.
in? Just
Yeah.
tell me if the rent's coming in.
And
Yeah.
then we just did one in Hamilton, made it a legal duplex.
Oh, good for you guys. So you're dealing with contractors as well, the city.
In the city's always a pain. But
Yeah.
But the contractors deal with the city. So
Yeah. So where's this coming from? Like, why are you going down this path?
I think I'm just the type to, I'm a lifelong learner. I just always want to grow and learn new things, try new things. And I just don't want to be stuck in a rut. Like, you only live once.
Have
right?
you had friends or family just kind of look at you and shake their heads to both of you and just say, like, what the heck are you guys doing?
let me tell you, very few people at the TTC know what we are involved in. A handful that I really know
That you
and
trust, yeah.
No. And there's been a few others that I've been brought into a conversation and it's been mentioned. And so I tell them what's going on and they're like, but you're going to walk away from your pension? Absolutely, I'm going to walk away. There's more to life than a pension, guys. These guys are working 6-7 days a week to bump up for a few extra $100 or whatever. That's fine. Cool. I never worked a day of overtime in 17 years. Not one single day.
Yeah, got it.
But and half of these people don't even own houses. They're paying rent.
So when these people would hear what you guys are up to, what would the response be?
You're
Too
crazy.
risky?
You're crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, the market's going to crash, or the interest rates are going to go up. You're going to be broke. You're crazy. You're crazy. You're crazy.
Mm-hmm. That's
Okay.
the classic one, isn't
Right?
it? Isn't it? The interest rates are going to go up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, they went on about $100,000 car and they live in their mom's basement. Good for you, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hey, to each their own. But I think that's crazy. So I don't know, but that's the mindset. Most people, they're so fixated on this pension and.
So when you walked away,
whatever.
17 years, do you qualify for a prorated pension of some
No,
sort?
so I pulled everything out. So
okay, you can do that. You have the option to say whatever my balance is, just give it to me.
Because I was under 50, I was able to pull everything out. There was no way I was going to leave it in there and let someone else dictate.
Yeah, Derek, good for you, man.
So the way it works is the pension statement that I get never reflects what I actually was going to get.
So we were really surprised. We're like, whoa, you get that much? You could have retired a long
so
time ago.
I thought, all right, I'm going to get like $100,000, right? Whatever, minus penalties or whatever.
Sure.
Whatever the rules are, right? So I call the pension office. I say, yeah, I'm leaving as of July 10th. Can you send me over my numbers, whatever? So they give me my two options: leave it in, or pull it out. So when I pulled it out, the CRA for some reason has this weird rule that, like, it has to go into a lira because it's pensionable money, right? But you're only allowed to put so much of it into a lira. So they put 192,000 into a lira, and then they gave me 130,000 cash payout because that wasn't eligible for a lira, minus withholding taxes. So I ended up coming home with like 90 whatever in change.
Got it.
But it was like way more than I was ever expecting. So that kind of also was like, okay, that's cool. That takes a bit of pressure off in case we need a little bit of a.
And how were you able to come to the conclusion that it was okay to walk away? I'm just kind of like, for myself, what I went through is I extrapolated my life out, and I'm like, if I don't walk away from this job at like in my early 30s, I don't like the way or what I think I'll be as a person in my late 40s. So I need to leave because like I'm gonna suck.
Well, I was more worried that I wasn't even going to see 50. Like it was
that bad?
I was at the point where like, so I was working like a 1 to say 9, right?
1 a.m.
No, 1 p.m.
1
to like
p.m. to
9
9 p.m.
to 9 p.m. roughly, right? Something like that. As like say, I would leave for work at like 12:15, maybe 12:20. As it gets closer to like noon, I can already feel my heart rate going up. I can just feel the like, and then like I'm putting on my uniform and I like it's like almost freeze. You know what I mean? It's just like I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here anymore. I just don't. And so we finally like looked at everything and we were like, yeah, sure.
Well, actually, there's one more piece. I was listening to, I guess, probably Erwin's podcast, and he was talking about options trading. So I made Derek listen to that. I'm like, Derek, this is your out. So yeah, I said, I manage everything else, so you have to do this. So he was willing to try it, and I ended up doing it too because
you're Michelle,
yeah,
and you're going to get into
and
it.
COVID,
Yeah.
there wasn't really much else going on during COVID.
So yeah, that has helped too. Like, I mean, I am totally not aggressive. We got other education outside of Irwin and really learned the ups, downs, everything.
So that gave you comfort because you felt like this is another stream of income we can create trading these options.
And like, I'm not looking to get rich. Like I'm like, for me,
you just want another income stream.
$2,500 a month. And I'm very happy. Like that's all I need. I don't need, I know a lot of people love Tesla and everything, but I don't need a Tesla and I don't need a lot of things.
Yeah, there's more to life than,
you know what I mean?
There's no, like you always hear that reading different books, like happiness you can't buy happiness. And I think I remember reading that and thinking, I don't know, I kind of want to try buying happiness, you know, like, but you kind of come to realize at a certain age that happiness comes from like the friends and family that you're around and from the experiences that you have. And, you know, buying a car is like just really unsatisfying.
It is. Especially putting gas in it these days too.
Yeah, but getting to walk in the forest now, like you were describing today, and take pictures of.
I've done in the last 2 years. The one thing that has come from COVID, I've been out in the woods more in the winter than I've ever been. I've seen stuff that I never thought was possible. Like yesterday, I sat on a bench looking at a screech owl in a tree for half an hour, just watching it sleep, all by myself, enjoying the sun, enjoying the outdoors.
Yeah, real life.
Yeah, and no one else around, just me and that bird. That's it.
What would you tell to someone listening to this who's going to a job that they freeze like that? Because that is like, I've kind of had that in my own life.
I would say you need to, I know it's hard. It's hard to, even if you're not in the position we're in, there's always other options. Like if you're at that point, it can't be healthy for you. And you're going to end up dying at that job. Like you will. It's going to kill you.
It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, and it's whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. Right? So when people have that outlook of like, poor me, or always complaining about certain stuff, like, sure, a lot of people are dealt maybe bad cards or bad things might happen to you, but if you're not actively doing something to change that, you have chosen that for your life.
Yep. And
Without her, it would have never happened.
How did you guys meet?
High school.
High school.
Actually, it was probably before high school. I used to play baseball and hockey with her brother.
Yeah, but we got together in high school.
Cool.
So,
Kids?
Yep, two boys, 2 teenage boys.
And then Michelle, what now? Like I noticed that you checked out some keto stuff and you do some CrossFit stuff.
Yep.
So you're just constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Where does that all come from?
I don't know, just constant improvement and keeping life interesting.
Where do you think this extrapolates out for you guys? You guys are young. What is the next 10? Like, how does this kind of move forward from here?
I don't know.
You have choices. You have freedom.
We do. And that's why we want to get a place in Costa Rica too.
So that's a next goal.
Yeah.
And then how have you been able to, and I guess that will happen because you've been able to build a portfolio, I assume, by refinancing some of the earlier properties?
We have, yeah.
Okay. And then, Andrea, is that what you still see most people doing who are growing their portfolio? They'll go back to a previous property, refinance, pull out equity, and then use that as a down payment?
Yeah, especially if they've owned it for, quite a lot of years like you guys have, or even if you've owned it in the last few years, there's still enough equity to pull to then be able to move on to more properties.
We did that in Timmins. We ended up, Michelle got a joint venture partner who lives in Sudbury who owned a whole bunch of houses in Timmins. So there was some other investor up there who got himself into trouble, and bank was repoing all these houses this person owned.
Oh shit.
So we bought 2 triplexes for $70,000 cash.
Come on.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then those were just flips or something? You
No,
still have those?
We still have them.
Oh, you still have
we
those?
refinanced them.
Oh, and you rent those out?
Yeah.
Wait, you bought 2 for $70,000 each?
No.
One
One
was,
was-
one
one
was go ahead.
One was like 22 and one was like 51 or something.
What, did you put that on your Visa card?
Pretty much it was a line of credit. Yeah.
Holy smokes.
No, it was insane.
So you bought those just cash?
Yeah, and I've never seen it. So the property.
You're holding this back from me? You're not telling them? You're not leading with the story?
But have you ever been to Timmins?
No, I've never been to Timmins.
There's a long drive from Sudbury
Yeah,
to Timmins.
yeah,
let me
got
tell you,
it.
There's nothing.
Yeah, it's
But-
8 hours north.
Wow.
But yeah, it's way up there. But I've never seen it before. Our I don't know what, some legal document we got. If you go to build a pool, say, and you find gold, it's the sole proprietorship of the Porcupine Gold Mine Company. Like,
Really?
I guess the gold miners own the deed for the property, but they allowed the city to put residence on it. But
Got
if you
it.
find gold, it's their gold. It's not your gold. It's like, I've never seen this.
Did you have to repair these properties?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
yeah,
got
they were really in really bad shape.
And
So
how did you manage that? How many times were you driving up there to manage
We went
contractors?
once.
So you just went
we
one
went
time?
once to see the property. So we partnered with somebody we met at the Rockstar VIP group who had the properties up there.
What the heck goes on at these VIP meetings?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You bought property.
Yeah,
up
so
there.
we went up there, we met her, she showed us around, and then she basically manages them. So we have, I'd say we put about 200,000 all in, including the purchase price and including fixing them up. So, and basically they're both a duplex with a house in the backyard, making it a triplex.
Okay, got it. And what are the numbers on like what kind
The
of rent do you
rent?
get up in Timmins? Yeah.
The rent is crazy. Like I was looking last night. One of them we make about, not make, but the gross rent is 3,000. The other one's like 4,400.
Wow.
Like the rent prices compared to the purchase prices, at least the purchase prices from before. As I understand, Timmins didn't used to appreciate, but I think it has during COVID.
Yeah, and even though you took that off a credit line from a house somewhere,
Yeah.
that's still going to cash flow for you.
Oh, yeah.
At 200,000 total on that
Yeah.
much rent coming in.
Yeah.
So those are big wins for you guys.
Yeah, and even splitting it. But during COVID, there were some issues with rent. Like we had more tenant problems in Timmins than we did with our properties here.
Yeah,
I think the tenant profile is just
Different.
It's not great.
And
I wouldn't want to manage it, but my partner is very used to that tenant profile, and she does a great job. So.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that, people will, when they'll talk to us about investing, we'll always say, hey, try to get your first investment in a bigger population center, even if you're going to pay more and the cash flow is less. And the reason for that is that if you have a vacancy, you're likely going to fill it faster. If you need contractors, although a lot of them are a pain to deal with, you're likely going to find contractors easier. And then if you have insider knowledge of Timmins, or different communities around Ontario, go for it. But some people will come to us and say, I want my first property to cash flow like $1 million. And so I'm buying it way up north. And I'm like, well, who's your team up there? Who's going to manage it?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this weird balance. And I think sometimes you can be better served by not starting there. But then once you have the experience that you guys have with paralegals and lawyers and financing, go for it. Because you can take the systems and you just kind of re-implement them up there.
Yeah, for sure.
So good for you. So this Costa Rica property is definitely going to happen because at some point you're just going to refinance somewhere. And
Well,
you're
it's
gonna,
more, can we get out there? Like right now, we can't go there.
Yeah,
so
got it.
We
Yeah.
actually have never even been there, but I've heard so many other people talk about it, how amazing it is, and for the bird photography and wildlife photography that
Oh, yeah.
Derek
Yeah,
wants to
that'd be
do.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, got it. So Costa Rica on the beach somewhere, close to water somewhere.
I don't really care if it's near the beach, honestly. Doesn't matter to me.
You just want somewhere out of Canada with warm weather.
Yeah. That was our plan always, to retire up north, be there in the summer, like at the cottage, and go somewhere.
And is that how you see the
Adventures.
next 10, 20 years of your life evolving? Will it be part of the time in Canada, part of the time out of Canada?
Yeah.
I guess the reason I'm asking that is I've never really before thought until the last year of how much time I want to spend out of Canada.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But in the last,
but it's
in the
true.
last year, like I've never, being born here, I've always just thought, okay, this is my home base. But now with everything that's happened and over the last couple of years, I'm like, okay, how little time am I going to need to spend in this country?
Yeah.
I'll kind of reverse myself. I'm telling Carol, I'm like, okay, listen, we have Croatia. We'll get another home base in somewhere else and we'll just have this triangle
Yep.
where we just go around. But I've never thought, as a Canadian, I've never thought that. Everyone here is nodding their heads. It feels like you guys are nodding and saying the same thing.
Yeah. I've never felt that before.
I never, right?
But
Being
this past year, especially the past few months, I'm like,
yeah.
Well, I see
Yeah.
even like we are watching someone, I don't know who it is, someone from here that owns in Costa Rica. We were watching some video that he put on, and like everyone just looks normal over there. You look
Yeah.
outside and everyone's walking down the street. You hear the birds, you hear the monkeys, you hear whatever, and I'm like, meanwhile we're all locked up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
like monkeys.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder why that is, right? Like, what is happening in the Western world?
Don't get me started on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's not happening at the Super Bowl.
And I guess
Yeah.
I kind of know why it's happening. It's kind of like the end of a system, and you can pick your part that you don't agree with, but there's many parts of it that are breaking, and it's kind of exposing itself in different ways.
It is. Yeah.
And it's kind of like unfortunate, but it's to be expected a little bit too. Like if you read history a little bit, it's kind of like, yeah, this is kind of like the time of this kind of process to go through a little bit of upheaval. But none of us like change, and it kind of sucks. You don't want to look at the country that you were born in that maybe was renowned around the world to be like the height of like freedom and democracy, to kind of see where it is now is kind of interesting, Anyway, I'm kind of veering off. So I'm curious, Andrea, for you, how are you seeing new investors come in compared to Michelle and Derek? Do they have, are they still looking in the same places? Are you seeing a change from how Michelle started to now? Is there a type of property that people are looking at differently? Are more areas around Ontario more accepted readily right out of the box? Because I know before when we were starting to try to tell someone about Hamilton, they thought you were absolutely crazy. Yep. Right? So are you seeing any changes over like 10 years from newer investors? Or is it the same kind of fears? Like everyone has the same fears?
I think everyone's biggest fear typically is, am I going to be able to find a tenant? Like that seems to be the biggest fear. But I would say in terms of the type of property people are looking at, before, if we had mentioned a duplex, there would be some people that are like, yeah, we want to have a duplex. Where most people I found, 10 years ago, they were doing rent to owns or single family, where now duplex or some form of a multifamily seems to be the way most people are going, because, of course we can bring in a lot more monthly rent versus a single family. And with prices going the way that they are, it obviously helps with people cash flowing and kind of maintaining that. But I think the fear level is always still going to be there. No matter what, I hear the same kind of, types of questions all the time.
And it's interesting because people will tell us that, the mortgage rules are changing and it's harder, or this is harder, but investors just seem to kind of morph to find strategies that work at any times. And sometimes they're not perfect, but the market keeps moving on.
I think the investors that do the best are the ones that take any of those challenges or changes and figure out how that can then be a positive to them. Right? Instead of looking like, oh my gosh, like this is happening. It's like, well, does that mean now we have a larger tenant pool, or, is there going to be less people now bidding? Like, what is it that out of what everyone else is perceiving as a negative can be a positive for you and your portfolio?
Yeah, then, our option coach says, where is the opportunity now? So just look at the market. It applies to real estate as well.
For sure.
Just where's the opportunity?
Yeah, I think in life, like there's just always an opportunity.
Yep.
Right? If you're kind of aware of it. And I think that's more important than ever for people to understand, especially just with what's going on in the world right now. It's so easy to get dragged on into like the negativity of stuff. And there's just so much opportunity. Like there's someone who's going to start their investing journey this year in 2022. And we're going to talk to them 3 or 4 years from now. And they're going to have hit like major home runs. Yeah. And there's someone else right now in 2022 who's going to stop because someone, either their own mind or someone told them not to do it. Yeah. And 3 or 4 years from now, they're going to say, I really wish I could have proceeded.
Well, that's going to be the thing. It's the people that keep telling you not to do it.
Yeah.
I have to say that's one thing. Like my parents have always been like, hey, I would have never done it, but you guys go for it. Do whatever you think you can do, right? And Michelle's parents have always been supportive of it too.
Yeah.
They've never been negative about it, which is big, right?
Yeah. I think for us, it's weird because we're immersed with investors all the time, right? And this is just normal to us. And if I see an opportunity tomorrow, I'm like, okay, let's put an offer in and figure out on Wednesday how to get the financing for it, right? Like you just jump on these opportunities. But I have this conversation all the time. Like there's somebody for everyone. Like we still need those people that only want to invest in GICs and mutual funds, right? Because we can't all be going after the properties, and there's like a different comfort level for every person. And I think we're just crazy. But we feel like there's more of us because we're always
we're
around
surrounded
people,
by each other. Like
but we're actually not that
until a
many
couple
of us.
years ago when we still went to larger gatherings. And if I'd find myself somewhere where I didn't know the people and it was some event and some people talk about real estate and it's the last thing I want to talk about, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. But I hear the conversation going on around. I'm like, oh, interest rates are going to go up and the market's going to crash, or you can't find any good investments these days. This would be like 2016 or something, right? And I'm just kind of like hiding in the corner, like, please don't even get me dragged into this conversation right now. And everyone's just like talking themselves out of doing anything, and they're all agreeing with each other, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So if Michelle, looking back on this journey, and then Derek, I guess I'll ask you, looking back on this, what would you tell yourself when you were just starting out? Anything different than what you already believed? Has it unfolded the way you thought it would?
Yeah, I think so. I would have started sooner, like most people. But yeah, I think the most important thing is the power of Kaizen, which is basically incremental small improvements. Just do something every day or every week. We actually, I was looking back at my records, and in 2013, when we started doing balance sheets to see our net worth, we just wrote down retire by October 2022, and we kind of just forgot about it.
No way.
And then Derek, he retired this year, so.
Good for you guys, man. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Holy shit. You read a lot.
I do, yeah.
What kind of books do you read?
I read all different kinds. Actually, I thought you would get a kick out of this because I know that you like to read. So my boss had me keep a book list. He always encouraged me to read. So this is basically 24 pages of like a list of books since like 98 that I've read.
Crazy.
The only thing that
You are a silent assassin who keeps track in such detail of the books they've read. This is amazing. Holy smokes.
The only
Good
thing
for
that
you.
I think I could do better is I don't like spend a lot of time with the books, and like I will read it and I'm like, oh, that's a great idea, I'm going to do that, but then I'm just on to the next one. But I figure it all, seeps in and has some effect on my life.
Yeah.
Totally,
So-
because even if it changes your thinking by half a degree, and you
Exactly.
move on to the next book,
Yeah.
you're half a degree different in a different
Exactly.
direction, and it compounds, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and there's some, to me, it's the book's job to grab me, not my job to make the book interest me.
Yes.
So if their book's not capturing me enough to sit down and ponder it or reflect on it, then I kind of move on, and I have no kind of like remorse in that kind of regard.
Yeah.
But there have been the odd book where it has such an effect on me that it'll dictate like the next 2 years of my life in some way. That some idea, some thought, you've kind of just quoted out a few things here now that obviously resonated with you. And I find that a lot of people who achieve great things in their life personally, great things to themselves, because we're all different, are readers.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that you have a big fat book list. Like
Yeah.
Anthony was just here the other day, and we were like, he's like, how many books have you purchased? And we just did some math, and a quick math, because I don't have a documented list like this. And I'm like, I guess it's been, and we guessed it's like, okay, it's over 1,000, but I don't know where it is. So, and I haven't read all those books, but I got to think that about 75% I have read, and 25%, maybe 10 pages in or 20 pages in, I just kind of like, not interested me. And I have just no remorse of throwing a book away if it hasn't interested me. I donate them. I don't just like throw them in the garbage.
See, I
or
feel I
something
have
like
to
that.
finish everything. So
Yeah. I used to be like that. I
Yeah.
used to think if I bought the book, it's my job to finish the book.
Yeah.
Now I think it's the book's job to capture my attention.
yeah, that makes sense.
So, cool.
Yeah.
And then Derek, looking back, I guess, 10 years ago or more, I guess, when you started this journey, what would what have you learned? Is it unfolding the way you thought it would? What can you reflect on?
It's exceeded my expectations because in the beginning, I honestly I couldn't see it. Like, I don't know, I guess I'm just not built that way. I didn't see that there is. All I saw was, wow, I think Michelle even pulled up an email last night that she had sent me, and I replied to her, and I'm like, look, the cash flow is dropping because of this and this, and like everything just never seemed like it was going to progress forward, right? But, I mean, I trust everything she does.
What was the tipping point then on that? Because if you were replying to that kind of email, when did you have the tipping point where you're like, oh, this really is benefiting our lives?
I would say by probably the time we bought Rowena.
So how many years in is that?
like
Like 7 years in?
2013.
20. Oh, okay. So like,
year in.
sorry.
Like a
Okay.
year in, but that was like our
okay.
fourth or fifth.
Yeah, because I think you bought 2 in 2012, didn't you?
Yeah.
I was looking back at my
Yeah, we
chart,
bought
yeah.
a rent-to-own and a duplex in
Yeah.
2012. Then we bought the second duplex in 2013. But actually, it was the duplex we were converting to a triplex in St. Catharines in 2014 that you were questioning is this cash flow going to work?
Yeah,
Like
that's
by the
the one,
time
yeah.
we add like all these
But-
other
but-
bills.
Yeah, because that
So,
one's scary
yeah.
when you're investing a lot
Yeah.
to get it converted.
So I was
Yeah.
questioning
Yeah.
the cash flow, but overall though, it wasn't anymore. It's like, okay, we're going to look at a house, and we'd walk into a house with Andrea. Actually, we walked into a lot with Andrea where Michelle had this thing that she wanted to get downtown Hamilton, like downtown Hamilton.
Because the numbers were good.
I don't know how many houses we walked into that I don't even know if we made it into one room. And these two would turn and look at each other and spin around. And
They're out.
I'm like, I just
We're
can't
done.
do. I just can't do this.
I always say to people,
There are some-
you're not offending me because this is not my house. So if you ever don't want to continue, just tell me and we're out.
Yeah.
Pull the plug.
I knew Andrea didn't.
And there's other houses that you walk in where you're just like take 2 steps in, you're like, oh my gosh, we need to make an offer immediately.
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah.
Cottage, actually.
That was the
Yeah.
cottage.
Yeah.
And Michelle didn't even want to go see this cottage because the real estate agent, I guess he did his own
Photos.
like photos and stuff.
And they were brutal.
And they were brutal online. And all I saw, I didn't even look at the photos inside.
Coming from a photographer, of course they were brutal.
But he had a drone shot of the overhead, and our cottage is on 4 acres. And I was like, we're going to have deer in our yard at this cottage. We got to go see it. So Michelle's like, fine, we'll go see it. Right? So first we went to look at one property, and it already had an offer on it, but it wasn't firm, and we could, put an offer in if we wanted to. We liked the place. It wasn't bad. But then we went over here, and we wandered around outside at first, and I'm like, all I'm thinking in my head is like, oh, this is great, whatever, right? And we go inside, and when you walk in the front door, it's like an open area with like the table and stuff. So Michelle and the agent stopped there to like look at the numbers and stuff. So I was like, whatever. And I just kept going. So I walked into the master, and then I walked into like the main area, and I came back out, and I'm like, I forget what I said exactly, but they were like, what, is it bad? And I'm like, just go take a look. And they walked around the corner, and they were like, oh my God. And I was like, yeah, we got to get this place.
Turnkey. We didn't have to do anything. It's nicer than our home in Mississauga.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and we got furniture, everything. Like, we got it all. It was done.
It's amazing what a property purchase like that can do for your life because it changes your lifestyle,
Yeah.
right? It's something we noticed when we bought that property we got in Croatia when we couldn't afford it. And we really, it was basically, we gave up like 3 or 4 rental properties in Hamilton to buy, because we had to buy cash over there. Not that it was a lot of money. We just didn't have a lot of money. So it took everything we had. Okay.
Yeah.
But it changed our lifestyle immediately. Because then every summer we started going there and the kids were going there. So it's like these things that you put off sometimes, or many people put off, you don't realize that if you get it earlier, your whole life is better. It changes your life like immediately. Yeah. So good on you guys to do it. And I got to just say something, like hearing you guys and like you guys working with Andrea, and Andrea having the guts to kind of do this kind of stuff when she did, because you really started young doing this.
I think I was 25.
25. And I think we probably forced you to buy an investment property.
Yeah, I couldn't work with investors of my own until I had it. So I just came
That
home
was
one
our-
day
that
and I was
was our,
like,
like-
JP, we got to buy a property. He's like, okay.
Yeah. But then he was on board.
He was very like the accountant, very worst case scenario at the beginning, where now it's like every day he comes home and he's like, okay, we're going to buy this and we're going to do that. And I'm like, oh my God, like now I can't keep up.
But to your credit, we put a lot of things in front of Andrea. Like, listen, you can't work with someone like Michelle who wants to be an investor if you're not an investor yourself. So if you want to work with us, and then she went out and did it.
Yeah.
Like that just by itself is insane. So to hear you that path and journey that you went through, and then to hear you guys and like you're reading the books and convincing Derek, and then Derek gets on board and going through this stuff.
And I actually remember one time Derek's like, when are we going to buy our next property?
Yeah,
Like,
he
what?
changed. Yeah, he changed.
But
Music's to your ears.
it wasn't that scary anymore.
Yeah.
And it actually, other than like getting approved for finance, it is quite simple to do if you have everything in place.
Well,
which
it's like
she had
everything.
in
Like,
place.
let's go to one of your worst situations in this. Might be the student rental situation you went through. I'm sure there's other crazy stories that you have, but let's go to that one. If you don't go through something like that, how do you grow as a person?
Yeah.
Because now as an investor, the next time something like that happens, or the next time you're signing leases, you know a few questions to ask that are maybe different. You know, you prefer a group maybe if you can, if it's possible. You just have that much more experience. And I tell everyone, like, failure to me is the raw material of success.
Yep.
Like, you just can't achieve what you want to achieve unless you screw up. It would be like in photography, trying to nail that perfect picture of the owl that you just showed me. If you didn't take 10,000 previous pictures that were like not so good and were of like other birds that really weren't as impressive.
Because conditions change every second of every day.
Yeah, and you got to
Right.
kind of keep moving. So
Yeah.
I really just want to say that you guys are all an inspiration to me, because I don't think we realized when we were starting out how crazy it can be to get into the real estate investing world. Like we took it as like, yeah, like this just makes sense. Like these properties, like this is the rent, this is the expenses. Like, why aren't you buying this? You know what I mean? And
you probably didn't realize how many people's lives you would change so significantly too.
Yeah, small part. We're a small part. I think you guys were going to change your lives with or without us, but we managed to come together and kind of support each other through the journey. So
but it does make it easier though. Like for us to take this all on our own without having someone like Andrea and without having like the support from all the different people that you present and we have options to deal with, like just to go out on your own. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it makes it a lot easier when you can bounce ideas off of someone. Well, Michelle can bounce ideas off of someone.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's just meaningful for me because when I quit my job, people thought it was crazy. Like, and then we had the first, so in my software world, people thought I was crazy. And then when we went into real estate at the previous brokerage that we were at, people pulled Mike aside and said, don't ever work with investors and don't work with these guys, Tom and Nick, because they work with investors and investors are the worst people to work with because they ask for numbers.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? And we just thought, man, like, why is everybody just like, and we just ignored it all. But in the back of their heads, you're like, really? Like another person thinks this is like, crazy idea. And at that time we just put our blinders on and we were like, no, this just like makes sense. We're just going to keep doing it. And we kind of ignored the noise. But now to come like a decade later or more and see Andrea, where you are with you and JP and your properties and everything you've accomplished and what you guys, Michelle and Derek, have accomplished, it's really meaningful for us. So please know that although we might not talk every day, you guys have an equal impact on us. Right? Because when someone maybe throws an attack our way, we can think of people like yourselves and say, you know what, it's all right. We know this kind of stuff works. Yeah. So thank you you didn't have to come here and share this today. Like you didn't have to do any of this kind of stuff.
We had to get out of our comfort zones.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. And thank you for that.
Had to.
Yeah. And no, Michelle, what you're sharing, kind of what you've kind of gone through with real estate and the properties that you kind of looked at. And Derek, just kind of with your previous career and the stress you've handled. I think someone listening to this can take a lot of benefit from that. So I totally appreciate it. And then, I think, we brought up Andrea's story, so I just want to repeat it. Like Andrea starting at 25 and getting an investment property. How did you decide you wanted to go down this path? I don't know if I've ever asked you that. Like, what was it?
In terms of investing?
Yeah.
Well, I think initially it just started off as being the opportunity to work here,
right?
That was kind of the initial part. But then as it grew, as I saw what my clients were capable of, like what real estate has allowed me to do and where I am in life, like is twofold. If I had just stayed in my, normal job, right? Yeah. So it's just kind of that freedom of your time and building something for the future for your kids. And, that's kind of how we look at it as well as, can we build generational wealth or, with how housing prices are going or even school prices, all that kind of stuff. Like what can we do to set our kids up for the future as well?
Very cool. Thanks. Anything else before we close off that you wanted to share? No?
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, no. Thank you. Andrea, anything else you wanted to share?
No, I don't think so. It's been awesome working with both of you, and it's just a cool story to share, right? So
yeah.
And if we know wherever you guys are, Michelle's going to be reading a book somewhere in Costa Rica.
I will.
And Derek's going to be in the it's not
pictures.
The woods. It would be the woods in the
jungle.
tropical jungle. He'll be in the jungle. So
Yeah.
you'll be in the rainforest taking pictures. So we know where to find you, reading a book, and you in the jungle taking pictures.
But she wants to be in the jungle too.
Yeah.
Cool. You guys will be there. You'll have to send us pictures when you're there.
Yes, we will.
Thanks for this.
Okay, thanks,
guys.
Tom.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Term show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.